if you use anything else than the proper mailing address that I'm giving you, then pursuant to Title 18, United States Code, Section 1342, you intend to be guilty of mail fraud. And that works pretty good, I'll tell you. But so, anyways, those are, this is my group that I have. It's Administrating Your Public Servants at Google Groups. That's my email. This is my website. I also have a Facebook fan page, and I've also got this blog. That's a blog right there. And so you can contact me in any of those places. As far as any issues are concerned, you can contact me at my private email, but it's better, quite frankly, at the group, especially this group, because it's a private group. This is private, so only members of the group can read this stuff on there. What I would say is don't put any personal information on there, but if you have an issue and you can keep it fairly generic, then it's a good place to do it because other people are learning too, and so we can share our information. Okay, so what we're going to learn today, we're going to learn who you are. I think we've already learned a little bit about that. How to assert your rights and a procedure to build a case against our public servants that will stand up in court. And they'll know exactly what you're doing, okay? And that's what you want. Quite frankly, you know, I don't want to remove all my public servants. I think most of them are just honest, hardworking people. And I've had some very good responses from some of them, okay? I think most of them are just honest, hardworking people trying to do a difficult job. But if they do violate my rights, I need to have my ducks in a row so that I can go after them. And that's what I do. And so I want them to know that's what I'm doing. So I want them to be a little more careful about what they're doing. And hopefully I don't have to get them removed. I've been studying law for more than 20 years. Someone told me about the two classes of citizens in the early 1990s, and I told them that they were crazy. Okay? And then they produced some court cases that talked about it, and I thought, man, if this is true, this is the most fantastic thing there is, and I had to look into it, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years. In the mid-1990s, I was in Toronto working for Bombardier on a contract, and I met a guy by the name of Patrick Ellis. And Patrick Ellis taught me about court procedure and how to file a lawsuit. So ever since then, I'm sure there's even more people taking my name in vain. I've filed several lawsuits in Ontario, and I've been in the Ontario Court of Appeals twice. I've filed numerous lawsuits in the U.S. I've taken them to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 9th Circuit, the 5th Circuit, the 2nd Circuit, and the D.C. Circuit. I've taken 2 cases to the U.S. Supreme Court. Actually, I need to change that. It's 3. I just did a 3rd one. In 2004, it was recommended to me to get some of Rice McLeod's material. Rice McLeod was Attorney General for the Republic of Texas. Rice McLeod had a very down-to-earth way of explaining the law. Rice McLeod really helped me to see what was going on. And you can still get some of Rice McLeod's material if you're interested at www.tatesite.com. You can order Rice McLeod's audio CDs. And I could probably make you some. I got a bunch of them, and so I got MP3s. If you know, I gave some to Will Sprayberry here recently, actually. But so tapesite. TAPESITE.com. Okay. And you can actually get my my materials off of that website too. Anyways, in 2006 I moved to Texas and got involved with the Republic of Texas. I was elected to Congress for the Republic of Texas. The Congress for the Republic of Texas elected me to be Speaker, and I was Speaker for the House of Representatives for the Republic of Texas for a year and a half before I got laid off from Eaton, because those U.S. Marshals that I was saying came to see me, and I got fired essentially, so then I had to go to New York, and that's what I was doing. I think I went in December of 2008. Matter of fact, it was, because I bought my truck when I left New York, and it's a 2008. And so anyways, I went to New York, and so I was in New York until I came back here, last January. Over the years, I've learned that we're under martial law, that all courts are corporate commercial courts in business to make a profit, that all courts are banks and leverage the filing fees, that all judges and prosecutors are getting royalties from every case they hear, and there's no real justice in the courts. They'll slap whoever violated your rights, but it will be behind the scenes, and the best way to deal with our public servants is administratively. Over the years, I've learned that there's no de jure government operating on the planet except for the Republic of Texas, and notice Republic is not capitalized. Almost all the laws are color of law. All countries are under martial law. They set everyone up for slavery. Do you want to be a slave? Is there a price for your freedom that you're not prepared to pay? The burden is on you to assert your rights. If you do not assert your rights, you lose them. You know, they tell you that all the time. Okay? Is anything you can and say will be used against you in a court of law. I mean, what is confusing about that statement? I mean, just because they're not telling you doesn't mean they're not going to do it, you know? Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Because we're under martial law, the courts presume everything. If you go on the attack, you can defeat their presumptions. If this procedure is followed properly, the system will deal with any criminals that are exposed. They will take care of it for you. Because we're under martial law, if you're already under attack, it becomes very difficult to deal with, and it gets more difficult the further along you are in their process. It is much easier if you attack them before they ever see you. Much, much easier. Remember, under the laws of war, the best defense is a good offense. Okay? You hit them, and they don't see you coming, and you just keep them off balance. You just keep hitting them, and the next thing you know, they got you listed as sovereign in their system. This is one thing I learned in engineering, is to be proactive, right? So I guess that's where I picked it up. Anyways, they've been good teachers for me because I do to them what they do to me. I grind them through my system. I presume they're guilty and make them prove they're not. I started out by filing commercial liens in 2005, so I've done commercial procedure. I filed a $15 million commercial lien against the IRS and all the commissioners and deputy commissioners. IRS Commissioner Mark Everson resigned. You know, it's kind of interesting because George Bush had him on the White House lawn, and he said, it's the toughest job in the country, eh? Filed several criminal complaints against him, too. I don't know what got him removed, whether it was the commercial lien or the criminal complaints, but yeah. Anyways, I filed a $500 million commercial lien against JP Morgan Chase Bank and all of their executive officers. That's about 35 people. I filed a $500 million commercial lien against Wilshire Credit Corporation, all of their executive officers. I filed a $1 billion commercial lien against a law firm in Phoenix and all of their executive officers. I filed a $15 million commercial lien against Capital One Bank and all of their executive officers. I've sent numerous invoices. The U.S. owes me approximately $2 billion. And that's one of the things that I put in my, they always make me, when I file a case, they make me fill out this application to get out of paying the fees, right? And so one of the questions they have is, does anybody owe you money? Well, I always put down the United States owes me $2 billion. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I believe that commercial liens work and are valid, but you're operating in their system, and they are thieves. There's no honor among thieves. Why would you expect thieves to be anything less than thieves? And so I started filing criminal complaints, and I started seeing much better results. I filed hundreds of notice and demands and dozens of criminal complaints. I sent a Dear Perjurer letter to every member of the U.S. Senate. Okay, that's 100 people, right? So that's at $15 a pop. You're talking $1,500 that cost me. And then I bought 135 congressmen, and I just basically started running out of money, basically. So you're talking another probably $2,000 for that. You know, so I spent thousands of dollars doing this stuff. All of these criminal complaints, or almost all of them, some of them can't, some of them I haven't recorded because of finances, but there's a bunch of them that can be viewed at the Pinal County Recorder's website. And there's a bunch of them that are available on this Google group too. Okay, I've uploaded them there, and so you can see a lot of them there too. After filing criminal complaints, if you go to that Pinal County Recorder's website, you'll see that I filed hundreds of documents there, I'm telling you. Some of them I paid, you know, like the maximum you can pay is $250. And it's 13 bucks for the first 8 pages. I think it's 13 bucks for the first 8 pages, and then $1 a page after that. And there's a couple of them that I spent the 250 bucks because it was like 400 or 500 page document. Anyways, after filing criminal complaints, I've seen numerous people resign. 2 U.S. attorneys in Arizona, the 2 U.S. attorneys in Texas that we talked about, a U.S. Attorney General. I filed a criminal complaint against former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, and I attached it to a petition for a writ of certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court. 2 weeks later, he resigned, and he said he was hiring attorneys to defend himself from the Department of Justice. And then what happened is the U.S. Department of so-called Justice waived their right to respond in that case. And so then I filed, the U.S. Solicitor General, okay, is who responds if you file an action against the United States in the Supreme Court. It's the U.S. Solicitor General that responds. So the U.S. Solicitor General waived their right to respond in that case. So then I filed a criminal complaint against him. His name was Paul Clements, okay, and he resigned. 2 weeks later, he was gone. IRS Commissioner Mark Everson, 2 Alberta Attorney Generals, okay? I filed criminal complaints against 2 Alberta Attorney Generals, U.S. Congressmen, U.S. Senators. You know, the sad part about that is they were probably the good ones that left and that didn't want to, that saw what was going on and didn't want to participate in it. You know, so at any rate, I've seen positive results. In Ontario, after filing a lawsuit, within 2 weeks there was an announcement on national TV that the issue I brought up in my lawsuit was not to happen or would not be tolerated. What happened is I told them that they compelled me to get a social insurance number. That's what it's called in Canada. And what happened is they announced it right on national TV, is that nobody is compelled to get a social insurance number, and if you feel like you've been compelled, you know, you contact the Department of Justice and we'll take care of it for you. And even today, I know people in Canada that one guy, there's a guy that I heard about, this is just somebody I heard about, but that what he did was he called up Revenue Canada and he said, my son thinks he doesn't have to get a social insurance number. You want to tell him that he does and what statute it is that he has to get it? And Revenue Canada says, yeah, he has to get a social insurance number. Let me get the statute number and I'll call you back and talk to him. And so then they call him back a couple days later and they say, you know what? He doesn't have to get a social insurance number. And there's no law that says he has to get one. And then the guy says, well, he says his employer is trying to make him get one. Can you talk to them? And they said, sure, no problem. So they talked to the employer and now that guy's working without a social insurance number. And so the point is that if I hadn't complained, nothing would change. Okay? If you don't complain, nothing's going to change. This happened twice over 2 lawsuits. I've had U.S. attorneys removed. They will never admit that anything it had to do with what you're doing. Okay? They will never admit that it had anything to do with what you're doing. Okay? Because you're accusing them of multiple felonies. And this is Alberto Gonzales, okay? This is, I filed criminal complaints against a court clerk for addressing mail to me with a zip code. Then the clerk disappeared and future mail didn't come with a zip code. This is a procedure that I developed over the last 5 years. I send a registered letter to my public servant. When my public servant violates my rights, I file a criminal complaint against him and send it to his boss. After 30 days, and so when I say I file a criminal complaint, I don't really file it into a court or anything like that. It's all administrative, okay? After 30 days, I make up another criminal complaint naming my public servant and his boss as a co-conspirator. I don't care if his boss has done anything. Couldn't care less, okay? And so after 30 days, I make up another criminal complaint naming my public servant and his boss as a co-conspirator and an accomplice after the fact and send it to the next one up the chain of command. After 30 days, I make up another criminal complaint naming my public servant and his boss as a co-conspirator and accomplice after the fact, and their boss's boss as a co-conspirator and accomplice after the fact. And I don't care if they do anything. You know, I go ahead and I grind them through my system, and the next thing you know, there's heads rolling all over the place. you know, and